welcome everybody to our second ever district podcast for the Plus team. Pretty exciting. Today, it's going to be a little different. We're going to be going into more of like motivation and resilience type of talk today. The big difference is we have two big kind of motivation subtopics, I guess. It's going to be first is going to be our extrinsic and our intrinsic. The big difference, and we're going to explain that today as well. And we're just going to jump right in, and we're going to send it off to our first group, who's going to explain more about the extrinsic type of motivation, and that's going to be our group of Sophia, Crystal, Gabby, and Yesenia.
Okay, thank you, Drake. So to begin, I first want to start off by defining what exactly external motivation is. So according to the American Psychological Association, extrinsic motivation can best be described as an external incentive to engage in a specific activity, especially like motivation deriving from the expectation of like a punishment or reward. So basically, it's just like someone finishing like a task simply because like there's an added like reward or punishment to it. So rather than deriving motivation from like internal satisfaction or from yourself, an outside force is what is like impacting you to complete a goal or like function properly. So it is like very monotonous, kind of like a video game character who accomplishes the objective for what is to be gained at the end. For example, Mario defeats Bowser in order to save Princess Peach. In Minecraft, Steve's ultimate goal is to defeat the Ender Dragon, and then Pac-Man is just like really hungry. So all of these examples, an outside force is impacting the way the player behaves. The same concept can be applied to our everyday lives as well. Adults work to get paid, students get good grades to get into a good college, and children do chores to avoid parental discipline. So that's just like an overview of what external motivation is, and we're now going to watch like a video from Kung Fu Panda where we're going to see what his external motivation is.
When you focus on Kung Fu, when you concentrate, you stink. But perhaps that is my fault. I cannot train you the way I have trained the five. I now see that the way to get through to you is with this.
Oh, great, because I'm hungry.
You are free to eat. Enjoy.
Hey!
I said you are free to eat. Have a dumpling.
Okay, so now that we've seen that clip of the movie, we can for sure say that Poe was definitely doing his best to finish his training just to eat the dumplings. And those dumplings were his motivation to get better at his training. That could be seen as a reward of extrinsic motivation. And other examples of extrinsic motivation rewards could be trophies for like when you do good in a sport or when you get good grades. You can even get a certificate or a trophy for the motivation you put in. Personally, some of the extrinsic motivation rewards that I have acknowledged throughout these couple of months have to do with commission paintings that I have done. You can say that money could be a reward of extrinsic motivation in that, but also I get motivated to grow my painting skills and get better throughout the process. However, there are also the negatives in the rewards. For example, one of these days, my dad had asked me to take out the trash before he got home, and he told me if I didn't do it before he got home, he would like take my phone away. So that kind of motivated me to do my chores because I didn't want my phone taken away. So yeah, those are some examples that I've come up with. Now I'm gonna pass it on to Yesenia.
So I'm going to be talking about like how effective is extrinsic motivation. So extrinsic motivation primarily works for like short-term goals. So like in the clip, Poe the panda was just trying to eat his food, and that was done in the same day or even the same hour. And like short-term goals could also be like a week long kind of thing too. But if you like try to complete like a long-term goal with only extrinsic motivations, the chances of actually like being successful is unlikely. So like a perfect example I have for this is like at the beginning of quarantine, everyone was doing like workout videos, like Chloe Ting. That was like everywhere. Like there was like a bunch of influencers like making little group chats and stuff, like trying to like hype each other up, like guys, don't forget it's the second day today and all that. But like once the hype started to die down, I lost motivation to like keep going with the workout videos. So yeah, so like I just didn't have that inner motivation to keep going, and that's where like it won't work for long-term goals. So now I'm going to be passing it to Sophia so she can like further explain.
Thanks, Yesenia. So while there's a lot of positives that come from extrinsic motivation, as Gabby was sort of explaining, it doesn't work for every situation. It's not always a perfect solution. Now, a personal example of this for me would be, so during spring break, I was going to head off to the mall with Gabby and Crystal, but I had no shopping money. And I wanted to go get me some Lush or something. And I always help out around the house doing chores, but my mom had said, okay, if you vacuum every day for the entire week, I'll give you some money to spend. And of course, I was like, down to do it. I was like, yeah, I'm going to earn this money. I'm going to go shopping. I'm going to bring back some nice stuff. But when it comes to doing chores every other day, I don't complain because I don't want to get in trouble, but I'm just like, ugh, I don't want to vacuum. I don't want to take out the trash. So depending on who you are, the type of person you are, it might not always work out exactly how you would want it to. And now I'm going to pass it back to Drake.
Awesome. I love the little examples you guys give. I hate vacuuming. All right. Now that was extrinsic motivation. Again, extrinsic, external, something you gain at the end of it. It's an outside force. But now sometimes you might not have, somebody or something to motivate you. So you kind of got to do it on your own in an internal way. And that's how you would have your intrinsic motivation. And we're going to pass it on over to Tamora and Geneve, and they'll explain more about it.
Thank you, Drake, for that intro of us. So, intrinsic motivation is the act of doing something without an obvious external rewards. You do it because it's enjoyable and interesting, rather than the pressure of doing it or a reward or a deadline that comes like an essay or college application. It's all about doing it because you like it and for no one else's liking. It's something that you have control of and you're curious about, or even a competition because those are the things that you like to do. So my example of intrinsic motivation that I have is reading because I like to challenge myself in reading and I try my best to analyze a book to feel in control because sometimes I don't have control over like some things that happen in life or my school. So I feel like that's a thing that I use to help with intrinsic motivation. Tamara, can you please give us an example?
Personally, I don't like reading. That's not my style. But recently, I used to take choir a lot, and I just stopped doing it because it got boring to me. But I still like to sing, and so in order to keep that like motivation to sing or keep up the skills that I learned in those years of choir, I just decided to just start singing to myself or singing songs that I like and trying to push myself to those limits just so that I know myself that I can still do these things that I've learned in the past and I didn't waste my time basically. So I'm going to give it back to Geneve to give her examples.
Okay, good. So thank you. That was really cool. I also was a choir and I also quit, so I understand you. It's all period. But so another thing is what everyone at schools thought. What was their intrinsic motivation? So here's an outside source of what many people thought. And most of the things that they wrote was a foundation for their future. They were really drawn to their future, so they would do things now and able to have a better future. Other things were their family, desire for independence, and desire for a better future, which was the main one. And I'm going to give it to Tamara.
Yeah. So basically, we really tried to go into in depth
and the desire to succeed in mostly everything we do. Like, I like to run just because I like being fit, or I like to do my nails or get acrylics because they look cool, not me personally, because that is a lot of work. I'm telling you that right now. But doing them just makes you feel good inside. Like, yes, I am maintaining something, or I am doing something for myself. And being able to obtain those goals for yourself and not knowing that you're doing it for somebody else makes you feel better about yourself and makes you want to improve yourself further and better improve yourself, like your physical appearance or the things that you're doing, or your clean room, like vacuuming. I know we all hate doing it, but vacuuming can make a clean and more eventful space for you to keep doing the things that you like to do personally. And I'm going to give it back to Genevieve to continue and go in depth more about the intrinsic ideas.
Okay, so we all went through ideas of what intrinsic motivation is, and now that you kind of have an idea of what it is, I'm going to be asking a couple people what their intrinsic motivation is. So do I have any volunteers to share what their intrinsic motivation? Drake, give us your intrinsic motivation.
Oh, I think for me, my biggest motivation is I have this big, weird, like, thing in my head that I have to be the best version of myself. Like, I think that when I don't do something, or if I'm selling myself short, it hurts me because I know I can be better. So I would say my intrinsic motivation is the constant feeling of that I have to be the best Drake that there is. You know what I mean?
I definitely agree with you. I feel like everyone struggles with that insecurities and trying to be the best that they want to be. I'm gonna pass it on to Yesenia.
So an internal motivation is I've been getting into yoga, and so the videos that I watch, she's always saying oh, appreciate this time you carved out for yourself and stuff, and that's been making me think yeah, I'm taking the time to focus on myself, and it just makes me feel good inside. So
Thank you so much for listening to our segment. I'm gonna pass it to Drake.
So that was our intrinsic motivation segment, or our internal motivation, what keeps us going on the inside. And now, as much as we'd like to say motivation lasts forever, it does not. Some days are much harder to deal with than the other days, and sometimes the motivation we have just kind of loses its way. But that is okay, because at the end of it, you have resiliency. You have to be resilient to get through those tough times without that motivation. And I couldn't think of a better group to explain it than Madison and Carla.
Okay, thank you, Drake, for that introduction. So we've all realized that we all have resilience, but we never really talked about how to get there. So to begin with, I want to hit the 5 main factors contributing to resilience, and that would be having the capacity to make your realistic plans, being able to carry out those plans, being able to effectively manage your feelings and impulses in a healthy manner, having good communication skills, and having the confidence in your strengths and abilities. We all know that sometimes it gets hard, and sometimes times get a little stressful. So let's watch this clip, and let's just watch this clip talking about building personal resilience.
High rates of stress and mental illness are potential threats to our well-being. Building resilience helps us combat these threats by giving us the ability to adapt and bounce back from adversity. It can be learned and developed in anyone at any stage and changes with changing circumstances. It's likely that we'll all experience workplace stress at some time, and when we do, it helps if we're aware of how it changes the way we think, act, and feel. By recognizing these indicators, we can take action to reduce the impact of stress on our lives. Sometimes we contribute to our stress with unhelpful thinking, seeing things in black and white, comparing our situation negatively to those around us, catastrophizing the outcomes of a situation we find ourselves in. Recognizing these unhelpful thinking patterns and adopting structured problem-solving techniques can reduce stress and increase a sense of personal control. Other simple and effective ways to reduce our stress include techniques such as mindfulness of breath and progressive muscle relaxation activities. We can use these strategies anywhere, at any time. The more we practice and use these techniques, the more automatic they become when we're faced with challenging or stressful situations.
Okay, so as the video mentioned, we all experience stress at certain times of our lives, especially with school and work. So it's always important to have some tips to guide yourself along those times. Um, some of the tips we have mentioned are to be self-compassionate, be flexible, reframe frustrations, exercise, and sleep. Personally, I like to sleep. And lately, I've been getting into the whole exercise thing, going to the gym, just kind of get my stress out on a certain thing instead of just keeping it all bottled up. Moving on, I want to pass this on to my partner, Madison, who will be working an activity with me.
Thank you, Carla. So you guys have done a great job of talking about motivation and resilience. And Carla, thank you for starting us off with what resiliency is and how to handle it. And everyone is resilient in some way. Everybody has resilience in a certain situation or throughout their lives, but sometimes it's kind of hard for us to realize when we've been resilient, for us to give ourselves that credit and that self-compassion of saying, hey, I'm being resilient, I am pushing through, I got this. So I want to do this little activity where I want everybody to take just a minute to really reflect on how you've been resilient. So think of your top 3 accomplishments and just really resonate with that and give yourself that credit of, hey, I did these accomplishments. I have 3 of them to share with people. And after we've had about a minute to think about it, I will call on a few people to share. So I'm going to pass it to my friend Carla, and I want you to tell me, what are your top 3 accomplishments and how have you shown resilience?
So for me, one of my main accomplishment was basically just getting into the cheer team or making varsity this year, because it was just really hard doing everything online and having to communicate with coaches and teammates all virtual. An action I took that showed resilience for that, I think it was just kind of being like getting the approval of myself, kind of like I did my best and that's all that matters. And it's important to have confidence in yourself.
Thank you, Carla. Drake, would you also like to share about what your accomplishments are and how you've been resilient?
I was thinking of them, and I was trying to wrap my brain around them. I know for my first one for sure is I'm very happy, and I think a big accomplishment I've had is the amount of growth I've done throughout my life. And even just like the past year, I think I've grown in a strong way for the better. I've took a lot to get to where I am mentally and how I feel. I think another great accomplishment I have accomplished is the connections I've made with people. I think my friendships and the people I've met along the way, they've really stuck by me and had my back, and I like to think that's because of what I've done for them as well. You know what I mean? I think it's a strong accomplishment that I've been able to achieve. And then my last one, honestly, truly would probably be the things that I do for the district. I do a lot of these little, I do this, I do, before the quarantine, I did talked about budget stuff for the district. And just actually very recently I had done this Riverside County mental health youth conference thing for the whole Riverside County, and they asked to interview me and talk about mental health, and it was one of the craziest things I've ever done because it wasn't just Hemet District, it was like the whole Riverside County, and it was a big accomplishment for me because it showed that they cared about my voice and that I matter, in a big retrospect. So it was very neat to do that.
Thank you, Drake and Carla. Now, I know for me, it's very hard for me to recognize when I've been resilient. So this was also a good activity for me to really think about my top 3 accomplishments. And I would say that my top one would have to be getting through this pandemic, because it has been so hard trying to come through with this transition, being at home, having to deal with family and school 24/7. So I'm very proud that I was able to push through this. And I think for my last 2 accomplishments, I worked hard and applied to colleges that I've been waiting to go to my whole school career, and I got into my dream school, and that's the biggest thing that I could have asked for. And that was my accomplishment. And I've been resilient because I was able to talk to myself and tell myself, hey, you got this. Like, you are doing it. And that's what I feel like we all need to do to have that motivation and this resilience. So that will be the end of our segment. I'm going to throw it back to Drake.
I love that. Congratulations, Madison. I think when you think about resiliency, like Madison was saying, sometimes it's very hard to think of the good that you've done for yourself and the positive impact that you have on yourself. I think Tamora said it in the other segment that it's kind of like being your own fan is kind of one of those things that it means something big time. All right. Well, we are coming to the end of our podcast, but we still would like to do a little activity with our group, and you guys can do this as well at home. I would like everybody to think of a time where you needed motivation. You were going through something tough and you just needed some motivation, and you were able to be resilient in that you had that and got that motivation, and you were able to get through this tough time or this tough event or whatever it might be. So we're going to start it off with Crystal, and she's going to tell us her time that she was motivated or she needed motivation and was able to get it.
Thank you, Drake. So I know we're supposed to refrain from talking about school, but I couldn't think of another one, so I'm just going to talk about school. But in I guess it was my sophomore year? I don't remember. But when I took AP Euro, I had an F in the class. And and then at the end of the semester, I had an F, and I was like, oh no, what am I going to do? And then the report card came, and obviously my mom saw it. She was like, what the heck is this? And I was like, I don't know. And then but I realized I needed to not I needed to make it up. So I took the world history class, but as a 7th period, so I could get an A in that class rather than just having the F in the on my transcript, whatever. But yeah.
AP Euro, man, everyone says it. I'm gonna swing on to mine. I mentioned it earlier about wanting to be the best version of myself. And I think with this whole pandemic that's gone on, it really highlights my laziness 100%. And with everything that's going on, I've definitely had a hard time trying to focus on myself. I'm one of those people where I'm constantly overthinking about everybody else except for me, it seems like. And so throughout this quarantine, I've been doing it more than ever. And I think my motivation from my family and my friends to push me to kind of keep track on myself and keep it for myself has really helped me big time throughout this whole entire situation of that I'm my number one priority and I need to act like I am. And so that's kind of been my motivation that I've needed from a lot of different people, and I'm able to get it. And it's very helpful to say the least. But now we're gonna switch on over to Gabby.
Okay, so a time where I was like lacking motivation was probably, well, it doesn't have, well, it kind of does have to do with school, but it was when I first came to the US. I didn't know any English and it was sixth grade and I didn't know like what to do or anything. So I remember I was in this class and the teacher was like, okay, I don't know why I could understand it, but I just didn't know how to like speak it or write it. And the teacher was like, write whatever is in this picture, like describe it. And I just didn't know what to do. And I just like remember crying. I was like, I feel so useless. But I something that like motivated me there was my friend, she helped me throughout it all because she went through the same thing that I went through. So that kind of her her telling me that she went through the same thing and that I looked up to her because now she was like she had 4.0 and everything that like gave me so much motivation and made me like so much made me feel so much better. So yeah.
Wonderful. We're gonna switch it on over to our wonderful Miss Ramsey.
Thanks, Drake. So mine is technically school related, but I'm going to talk about college. When I was getting my undergraduate degree, working on my bachelor's, I was adulting like fully out on my own, paying rent and all that kind of stuff, and working a full-time plus schedule. So it was like over 40 hours a week job, and they had high expectations of me, but I also wanted to finish my degree. And so trying to get all of that done and feel motivated, there were times where I just really wanted to quit and not keep going and not like, well, I'm doing okay thus far. Maybe do I need this degree? And I didn't really have anybody to push me. I didn't have any extrinsic person to tell me that like, no, you need to do this, because I was a first generation college student. So my parents were kind of like, we're just proud of you for trying, but which was great. But I really wanted to finish that up and, do the teacher thing. And here I am. So I had to focus on the intrinsic factor of wanting to be proud of myself and accomplish that goal. And it was not easy. There were some times where I really wanted to quit, but I made it through, and I just had to remind myself of how it was going to feel to get that done. And looking back, I'm really glad that I did. So that was my resilience example too.
Yeah, adulting's hard, man. Rent is whew. Now we're gonna pass it to the ever outstanding Miss Killebrew.
Thanks, Drake. A time I needed some motivation was I had to sell my house, and there was an extrinsic because I needed to get top dollar for my house, right? So there was the money factor with that. But I had a couple weeks to get it ready, and we'd lived in the house for a long time, and so it needed some TLC. It needed some deep cleaning, and I'm not a cleaner. It was the hardest 2 weeks, but what I kept pushing me was that it was kind of a mixture of extrinsic and intrinsic. This idea that no one is going to stop me from accomplishing and getting this house to look beautiful. Like, I'm going to do this. Like, if my name's Jamie Killebrew, I'm doing it. And so I had that internal drive, but then that external drive of like, I want to sell it. There's that pressure to sell it. And it was a hard 2 weeks. I mean, I was staying up to midnight. I was scrubbing grout. I was putting in the work, but we sold our house, and it was such a burden lifted off of me. So it was a time where it was stressful. It was a lot of work, and there were two different kind of push factors of extrinsic and intrinsic, but I met that goal.
Outstanding. Money is a great thing. We're going to now switch it over to Genevieve.
Thank you, Drake. Something that I know that I struggled with for a long time was the thoughts. I let my thoughts overrun everything that I do. Like if I was speaking to someone, I'm like, oh, they probably hate me. They think I'm annoying. Maybe I'm talking too much. Or if I looked at myself in the mirror, I felt like I wouldn't approve of certain things on me, or I was just really insecure. And I always thought that I needed that extrinsic motivation. I thought I needed a person or something to tell me, to motivate me, to make me feel not like that. And I realized that what I needed was an intrinsic motivation. I needed to look into myself and say, you know what, you are worth, what you are, and just being yourself. You need to learn to love yourself, and pretty much it took that intrinsic motivation for me. So I struggled a lot, and noticing that I am a good person and that I am worth the things that I am looking for really helped me. So yeah.
That's absolutely amazing. Now we're going to switch over to Carla.
Okay, so for me, it was a little more like personal, kind of. I don't know. Like at the beginning of quarantine, I struggled a lot with my mental health. It was just kind of like being in the house or like in my room for so long, it just kind of like overtakes. So for me, like it was just really hard, and I had an intrinsic motivation. So for me, it was my older sister. She ended up having to move back in, and now we're besties, so it worked out. So for me, like she helped me a lot, kind of just like feel supported and just feel like I had someone there for me, like no matter what the situation was. So yeah, that's what made me feel better.
I think everyone can agree that the first couple months of the pandemic were the absolute worst. But now we're going to switch it over to Madison.
All right, so a time where I was in a pickle, having a little situation, was when I was first learning how to drive. I was a terrible driver. I was terrible. I could not back up to save my life, and I just thought that I was never going to get my license. I was like, gosh, I can't do this. I just can't drive. Maybe I'm not meant to be a driver. It was safer for other people if I'm not on the road, But that license was my reward. That was my ticket to freedom, being able to drive myself to the mall or go pick up my own Taco Bell. So I was really giving myself those speeches of, okay, I got this. I need to get over my fears. I'm going to be safe. I need to trust myself. And that was that intrinsic motivation of, hey, I can do this for me. And then it was also extrinsic, because I was going to get that license. And that was going to be my ticket to freedom. And I was going to go out there and take the world by storm. So that is my example.
I can confirm that Madison cannot back up properly, for sure. Next, we're going to talk with Sophia.
Madison, I'm a horrible driver too, so don't even worry. I'm sure you're great now, but you do not want to drive with me. So, obviously I'm going to talk about the pandemic. What else would I talk about? So, Crystal knows we were in this AP seminar class, and there was this really important part that we needed to submit in order to pass the class and move on to AP research. And I was just like, I can't do this. I won't be able to do it. And everyone in the class, like all the girls in the class, created a group chat, and we were just motivating each other, like, we can do it. Do you need help here editing, blah, blah, blah. And we all ended up getting each other through it. And it just felt good to have that support from peers while I was like stuck at home, like, oh my God, it's the end of the world type of feeling. But it all ended up being okay because I had their support.
Wonderful. Now, the awesome Tamora.
Oh, I got awesome before my name. Let's go. I'm going to talk about school, kind of. But don't mean to brag, but I used to be like straight A student all the time, and even on those report cards, even though they were straight A's, it was always, well, she kind of talks too much, or she be moving around too much in class. And I know Yesenia and Miss Avila know that I am one of the most hyper kids in our class, and I be doing too much sometimes, I'll admit. But I tried to actually start looking into myself. I'm like, why am I doing all this stuff? Why can't I just sit down and just focus for like 5 minutes? Like, please, I need to know what's going on. Or like Miss Avila would tell me to go do something for Plus, and I just forget that I had to do it, and it would just take 3 days or something. And I started doing research on myself because I was feeling like really down. I was like, why can't I do these things? And I found out that I do have ADHD, and just knowing that I do have it and that I'm getting the help that I needed was a great intrinsic motivator to keep going, and knowing that I'm not a failure and I'm not crazy, but I do have something going on, and that I am coming to terms with myself, and that this is now a part of me that I am coming to terms with. So that's mine.
That's absolutely amazing. Yeah. Now, speaking of Miss Avila, we're going to pass it on over to her.
Awesome. Thanks, Drake. And thanks, Tamara. I got nothing but love for you, girl. For me, when it comes to motivation, I have that internal base. Like my mom always used to tell me I was born an old woman because I was, there was times where she's like, am I the parent or are you the parent? And so I've always had that internal drive to be the best version of myself. But when my rock got sick, my mom, it was a real hard time to really get myself over that struggle. And so it wasn't until I let others help me that I was able to overcome all that, the loss and trying to just grasp myself. And so one of those things to, a lot of times we build up these walls and we try, to not let others in. But I'm here to tell you, we do need others, and it's those moments where you appreciate those friendships, and so it's really important to have that network. And I'm here to tell you, it's okay to let your guard down. We're not always these rocks, and so those extrinsic forces, they're not always bad. I know growing up they would always be like, oh, don't let those people influence you, but I'm really glad I built some really solid bonds with some friends, and they really did help me. So just something to keep a mind out there. I know sometimes we want to do everything for ourselves, but sometimes we do have to let other people come in and help us. And that was my extrinsic help with that.
I think when the walls that we build around us, man, we can make those things strong. Let me tell you. But I definitely it is a big deal for sure. But now, one of my favorite people on this planet, the sweetest girl ever, Miss Val.
Thank you, Drake. I don't think I've ever been introduced that way, so I really appreciate it. Actually, I'm going to kind of tag on, like, I feel like I relate to a lot of what I heard. So the thing that comes to mind for me most recently is my best friend since I was in middle school just had a really serious tragedy happen to her that her daughter died. And I wanted to go be with her. But I know that she's a very different personality than me. Like she's really kind of private and holds things in. And I'm not as much that way. And she lives up in Fresno. So I had a 6-hour drive to kind of prepare myself for being with her. And so my internal motivation was to almost like put my own feelings in the back seat so that I could be really aware of what she needed instead of me showing up as like, this is how I think I would be in that situation. And really try to be really sensitive to who she was and what she needed at the moment. And my internal motivation was really like, I want to grow here. I want to really be there wholeheartedly for someone that I really love and not have sort of like it filtered through my own personality as little as possible. And I feel good in that that we laughed together, we cried together, we went shopping, and it wasn't all sad. And I really feel like I showed up for her. And when I left, I felt kind of proud of myself. So thank you.
I think it proves on more than one occasion shopping fixes all issues for the most part. And to wrap it up, for the final sharing of this little activity, it's gonna be Yesenia.
So like I was just recently like in a slump, I guess. Like I had like a lot of missing assignments and everything. And so like it was just hard to like find motivation to actually do it. And so like over spring break, I kind of like broke down the week and kind of like made a list of what I need to get done. And like I kind of realized like I need to do it like no one else can make me do it, you know, it has to come from within. So like I kind of realized that, and I got almost everything done, but I try not to beat myself up for not getting every single thing done because I still did a lot. So yeah, I just try to learn to find that motivation from inside of me.
I think too, one of the things is who's going to be living your life? Yourself, right? So you got to do it for yourself, and it's a big deal to be able to overcome something like that. But with that, I think we got everybody, and I'm absolutely so grateful to hear your guys' wonderful times that you needed motivation and were able to get it. It takes honestly a lot to share these type of experiences that we've had throughout our lives, because they're not always so easy to talk about. But thank you for that, and thank you to all of our viewers who came back for our wonderful second podcast. And we hope to see you on our next one. Plus Team out.